Well, the great test in life comes down a lot to attitude, right? So people have busy lives. They say they have busy lives, but a lot of it is mental clutter, right? And when you look at this, for example, if you've ever done ancestry research, it's always interesting. I got into ancestry research at some point in my journey. If you look at families in the 19th century, 100 years ago, most of them had very large families. They had like 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 kids, a lot of them. And you can imagine how busy their lives must have been, like just completely consumed with survival and taking care of raising huge wolf packs of kids and
laundry and food and like dishes.
Right. As you know, I'm just raising a little girl yourself.
Yeah,
right?
Just one.
Yeah. And so most younger people nowadays are not raising families, right? So they're caught up with the clutter of their mind. And this again reflects partly the information age that we live in, the influx of information through the internet and the cell phone devices we have. Which is wonderful if you're an information junkie, but for a lot of people, it's just sort of causing more clutter in the head. And so your life could be very full, but to avoid what I call the life of the 21st century distracted man syndrome is to work on attitude, which is that even if your life is very full, imagine what these people were doing 100 years ago. If they had any semblance of satisfaction in life, and I'm sure many of them didn't, I'm sure many of them suffered and struggled. Mm-hmm. But if they did have a semblance of satisfaction, and I'm sure many did, it would have come from attitude, right? Like recognizing that what you've been dealt with, the hand you've been dealt with is okay. I'll hold off saying perfect for a moment because I don't want to sound too bypassy here, but it's okay in and of itself for what it is, right? And maybe in some respects it is perfect when you see it from a certain angle. The problem is that people are in resistance to the life that they have. They're rejecting the life that is given to them. They're rejecting the conditions that they have to deal with on a daily basis, so they don't have peace of mind, right? Whereas when you you cultivate some measure of acceptance for what you're dealing with, even if a lot of it involves struggle or great struggle, such as how you're going to pay your next bill and so forth, you can tap into a certain measure of peacefulness, even just little glimpses here and now, knowing that you're going to be okay and that you're just involved in a very challenging stage or progression in your life where you have to cultivate the right attitude, right? Mm-hmm. So I've told the story many times before of how when I first came to Vancouver in 1984, I had come up from the ashram in Oregon where I was with a spiritual teacher of mine, and I didn't know anybody in the city. What remnants of my family were back east. Wanted to stay here. I had $200 in my wallet, and the buses were on strike, and there was no SkyTrain. There were no cell phones or no internet. So I was given an address of a meditation center to go to. I went there, and it had just shut down the week before. There was nobody there. So I'm left standing with a suitcase, not knowing anywhere in this city, $200 in my wallet, and I really want to stay here because my overriding sense was this is where I was meant to live. And so I went to a park in Vancouver. It was a nice sunny day in July, fortunately, and did a little meditation, then fell asleep. Woke up and had, with a strong intention that I'm staying here no matter what. I'm not, getting on a bus going back east. And walked up to a corner, I think it was 4th and Trafalgar, and the one guy who I knew in all of British Columbia who lived on, I think it was Salt Spring Island. This is 1984. He drove up in his green Volkswagen Beetle, exactly as I got to 4th and Trafalgar with my suitcase. He saw me, said, "Get in." And so I got in, I looked at him, I was wondering, what took you so long to find me? This guy had a certain wisdom to him. And he took me to Wreck Beach. I didn't know what Wreck Beach was. That was where I met my first Vancouverites. And then later that day, there was an opening in this meditation house, this meditation community I was part of, and they had one room available. And said to the woman, "How much is it?" She says, $200, which is what I had in my wallet. So I gave it to her. So the moral of all that was that the forces of the universe were sort of aligning, if you will, to help me to stay here where I wanted to stay here. Why? Because I was setting the intention for it, right? And so that required a certain focus of mind, mm-hmm. right, to achieve that goal. And then the magic happens afterwards, which is then the cosmos starts cooperating with your destiny, with your plight, because you've set that initial very strong intention, and that's the courage piece, right? I had to be courageous. That even in the midst of the complete unknown, not knowing anyone or anything, I was not going anywhere. I was staying here.
Yeah. I love that story. And just the act of like going to a park, meditating and falling asleep, I think is hard for many, many men to conceptualize these days because
Well, for one thing, your phone's going to be, you're going to be on your phone.
Exactly. We all just fill empty space with our phones, but that takes us out of presence and it puts us into some weird, like liminal space where you actually went inside and tapped into your inner power and your connection to the greater unfolding out there. And
something outside of my ego mind.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be clear, I'm not anti-technology. So that'll be the phone. So
Whose phone is that?
Wow.
there's the timing right there.
His phone starts ringing at that moment.
Forgot to turn it off. So I'm not anti-technology in the sense that these devices are extraordinarily helpful and extraordinarily irritating. But the power that we get from technology is ultimately more of a plus than a minus. But they can be impediments that cause tremendous minus in our lives if we're not cultivating the right attitude. Right. So this is another piece comes down to right attitude, which incidentally was one of the Buddha's noble truths in his Noble Eightfold Path of Truths was right speech, right discipline, right meditation, and so forth. And one of them was right attitude, which is you deal with what you're given and deal with what you're given in life in a way that is most beneficial, right? And so I just want to make that clear because we're talking about the problems that arise from internet compromising attention, but internet in and of itself doesn't have to be a problem, right? It can be actually a great plus if we're working with our mind properly and economically, right? So in other words, not wasting time on with the technology, instead using it to further your progression in life, right? Yeah.